Hey there, and welcome to the behind the scenes of the Rustic Songbird Podcast. I'm Lydia Walker from rusticsongbird.com, and I'm taking you behind the scenes of an interview on the podcast. I hope you enjoy this video, but before we get started, I want to invite you to subscribe to this channel. If you enjoy topics like this, we have new podcast episodes coming out every single week, and the behind the scenes will be here on this YouTube channel. So make sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything. Also, if you enjoy this show, consider becoming a patron and supporting Rustic Songbird on Patreon. You can check out all the details at patreon.com/rusticsongbird. All right, let's get into today's show. My guest on the show today is Bill Zufelt, and we are going to talk all about how to be more resourceful, especially from the perspective of a musician, and how you can be resourceful in using the contacts that you already have, the network that you already have, to grow a long-term career and long-term friendships with people in the music business. So, Bill, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Lydia.
Well, I met Bill through my friend Erskine, who has been on the show several times. And I called Erskine one day and he handed the phone to Bill. He was sitting right next to Bill and he said, "You guys need to meet each other," which is exactly what we're talking about today, is networking and finding those real connections. And so I thought, wow, this is cool that, Erskine knew you and then he knew me and he's like, you two need to know each other. Right. And so I talked to Bill on the phone months ago, and you were very, very busy because you're also in real estate and it was just booming. And you were like, this is the busiest I've ever been. This has been crazy. So you can talk about a little bit of that experience as well. And I know networking specifically is, true in any field, in any industry, but specifically networking for musicians is what we're going to talk about today, and how those same principles apply. So feel free to share any stories about that or tips and advice for how to be more resourceful. So I want you to share a little bit about your story and how you kind of got into the industry and how you've built the network over time.
Yeah, so crazy story how I got into the music industry. I basically fell into it by accident. I tell people I was busy doing real estate, minding my own business, and then just fell right into the music stuff. So it started with the lead singer of a band was standing in line after church on a Sunday. I was grabbing lunch with a friend, and the lead singer of a band was standing in line in front of me and started talking to me. And then it was basically a chain reaction from that moment to how I ended up. Now I'm living in Nashville and doing a lot of things with artists here in town. My company that I started was Spire Entertainment, which is Spire. Spire taken from the word inspire, and wanting to inspire people through music was my reason for naming it Spire Entertainment. And we used to do benefit concerts, partnered with an organization called Courage Worldwide that fights sex trafficking. And so we used to do benefit concerts, and I helped them run a lot of their shows. And so I went from like setting up a show with 4 local bands in Sacramento, California, and I promoted the heck out of that thing, and I got 500 people to show up, which they couldn't believe it. And I thought I failed because I wanted 1,000 people and it was only 500. And they were all consoling me, "Bill, we've never played in front of 500 people." And I started to realize, oh, maybe this wasn't such a failure. I actually, did something good. So then went from that to running concerts with some big name Christian artists, like ran a show, Jars of Clay, one of their shows, ran a show for Sarah Groves, and it just kept going. And I just laugh and crack up about it because I'm like, how did this all happen? It's just crazy. But
So that wasn't what you planned going into it, but it's like one thing led to another, and just, conversations or meeting somebody, and then, filling the need or finding those gaps, and also being willing to work hard. Like you said, you were pounding the pavement, trying to get people there and promoting it as much as you can, like doing all the things. And so I think a lot of it is what you learn by trial and error of what works. And even some things you might see as a failure might be a step towards something else.
yeah,
Meeting someone that later on down the line becomes a really good friendship, or you do more events together and that kind of thing. So it's just amazing to me, those little things. We can look back now and see milestones that was like, oh, if I didn't go to this event, or if I didn't meet this person, then this other thing wouldn't have happened. And so there's so many connections like that that happen, and in the moment we don't even realize how pivotal it can be.
Yeah, and that one lead singer in the band standing in line in front of me for lunch, if I hadn't had that conversation with him, if I hadn't been social and he initiated and I, participated in conversation with him, I would not even be sitting here in Nashville right now. So crazy.
Yeah, so it changed even, bigger things in your life, like a move, to
Yeah.
be in a different area and to be in the music industry after, being pretty established in real estate, and that was your thing, but then to start an entertainment company and to be working with musicians and artists and helping promote events and connecting people. It's just amazing how stories come together like that. And if you look back, you realize that wasn't my plan at all, but that's how it came together.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't my plan.
Yeah, you've got a pretty cool story of an event that you helped with that connected several people. And then later on, they did something amazing together. So share that story. It's a pretty cool
Yeah,
connection
this
there.
this just happened recently. It was back in the end of October, put together a music artist retreat. It was called Marrowbone Artist Retreat, and it was at the old Randy Travis farm. And I partnered with the Willis family, who are the current owners of the farm. And for those of you who maybe haven't heard of them, they had a reality TV show, and they're a family of 12 kids that are very musical. And so I was fortunate to cross paths with them and with Brenda Willis, the mom. And we we were out there for another event, and then her and I just started talking, and we decided to partner together and do this retreat. And we ended up having 20 artists that attended that weekend, and we camped out there for the whole weekend. And just the the way the artists bonded with each other, a lot of them didn't know each other prior to that weekend, and just the bond that was there. And a lot of them have been, saying since, this is my group, this is my group of friends. And so this last Sunday, one of the artists, he knows the owner of Cabana here in Nashville, and his artist name is Yakeen, very talented artist if you want to look him up. Yakyn is how you spell his name. He ended up pulling three of the artists in from that weekend, and the four of them did, a writers round. He ended up going out of town for a retreat, so he ended up not being for the actual writers round, but um, they all were on stage together doing the writers round. And just to see the camaraderie and just the fact that they're all, have become good friends, just something that came out of, going to that weekend. And I think, a lot of times artists can be like, oh, I don't want to give up a whole weekend, to go to a retreat or whatever. And I have heard artists say, I don't know if I can, do that or take off for a whole weekend. But I think just making connections with people, and even with other artists in town can have connections that you don't have, and you become friends with them, and they end up pulling you into other stuff. So
Mm-hmm. I've seen that over and over as well. I might meet a musician because we both play at the same event and we didn't know each other before that, but hearing each other play brings them top of mind when there's another opportunity. Like
hmm
if I get a call for a booking and I can't make it, I think of other artists who are in that similar genre or in that area that would do a good job and then recommend them. But I wouldn't have known them. We may have played some free gigs and then I recommend them for a paid gig, so there's things like that that have been connections, and people have done the same for me because I put myself out there. I volunteered for things. I played benefit concerts.
hmm
I just try to get my name out there and try to go out of my way to start those conversations and say hello and ask them questions about themselves and like about their music. And so it's not just for me, but genuinely caring about other people and what they're looking for, what other opportunities they're interested in. And so I just think it's amazing when we take that step out of our comfort zone and just really reach out to people and build that friendship. You just never know what's going to come of it.
yeah, and I think going into it, not thinking what can I get for myself, but how can I help others? And then naturally, those things are just going to happen, like with these three artists getting pulled into that writers round, this past Sunday night. So go into it like being intentional with, you know, friendships with people and trying to see how you can help or encourage them in what they're doing. Um, and also be present when you're in conversation with them. Don't be, on your phone, or just, just be present in the conversation. And people really appreciate that. They can they can really tell if you're present in a conversation with them, and if you're really listening to them and care about them.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's not as common as you think. So you're actually going to stand out if you pay attention and if
Hmm.
you ask more detailed questions than just, "Hey, how are you? That's great. Nice to meet
Yep.
you." You know, anybody can do that. But, if you maybe pay attention to their performance, like if you're playing at an event and like listening to what the song is about or the story behind the song and then asking more questions on that, it shows that you're paying attention and that you care,
Hmm.
and they really appreciate it. Songwriters love to talk about their songs, right? And that's like their baby. And if you ask them like
Yep.
the story behind the song or something that they mentioned that they care about, people will talk to you all day long about their stories and what they're excited about. And so sometimes it just takes one question to really get the ball rolling.
And being a good listener. Yeah. Being a
Yeah,
good listener too. And people so appreciate that when you listen, you know?
I think so. Yeah, I would love to hear your take on being more resourceful, especially from the perspective of if you're starting a new venture, like, pivoting and doing something different, you're starting from scratch, and it might seem like you don't have a lot of resources, like maybe somebody that's just starting a band or just starting a new music endeavor and they don't have contacts in that area yet, or maybe they don't have an audience in that genre yet. Like, what tips do you have for someone like kind of starting something brand new, starting something fresh, and being resourceful with, little to no audience, fan base, network? How would you recommend someone start doing that?
Yeah, I think going to different, mixers, there's different organizations in Nashville that have, mixers and different things, and you can also join their organization and be a part of, like, for example, there's the Other Nashville Society, which is an organization here in town it's everything but country music. Um, um, so if you're a genre that's not country music, that's an organization that's been doing some things. I know things are a little different with the pandemic, so I know, but a lot of these different organizations are doing online Zoom, hangouts and stuff like that. So I think it still can be productive to join those. Um, there's balanced breakfasts that they would meet every Friday morning here in Nashville, and there's all different, people doing different things in music, and you can definitely, make some good connections there. Um, there's also, there's artist development organizations that they can they might charge you like, $300 a month to help you with some of your, stuff and getting launched and promoting, like when you release maybe your first song and things like that. um, Indie Connect is one of those organizations that's here in town. There's another one, and I'm blanking out on the name right now. um, but yeah, there's a few of those in town, which, it's not necessarily going to be a huge chunk of money. It might even be this other organization that I'm aware of that I can't remember the name. They do things as cheap as I think a couple hundred a month. And so I think that's some ways. And then um, yeah, I think especially starting off, it's key to meet people and make connections.
Yeah, you're talking
And
about like tapping into um, established organizations, like people
mhm,
that have built up groups and people
mhm,
that have shared interest. I think that's really smart to do. You can do that in person, like conferences or like retreats, like you mentioned. Just like going to a retreat, you might
mhm.
have one person in common. You might know one person or see the invite, but then you meet all the rest of the people that are there for that same reason, and you can kind of have that in common to meet new people that are doing similar things. I think Facebook groups are another great way to do that, by
Agree.
topic or genre or like similar interests. So, what has your
Mhm.
experience been with that, like online groups and getting into, kind of interest specific
Yeah,
groups
I'm
online?
glad you asked. I did remember the name of that other company. It's AGD Entertainment. All good something. I forget what the D stands for, but
AGD. Got it.
AGD Entertainment. Yeah, as far as like Facebook, um, Facebook is great because you can do groups on Facebook, and so Spire Entertainment, we actually started a group called Spire Music Collective, and so we have about 100 artists in the group up to this point, and then obviously we were doing these dinner hangouts every so often, like every other week, where we meet up at the restaurant, and the first like 20 people will say I'm in. When we post it, get to go hang out at the restaurant, and then you get to meet other artists and stuff. Um, that people have really enjoyed that a lot, and again, you're connecting with a lot of other people, which can lead to other possibilities and even to collaboration too on music.
Mhm.
Writing with other people in town and sometimes doing songs together and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, I think, and I know there's a bunch of other groups on Facebook too, that you can join, and you just start searching for music Nashville and different things, and I'm sure you can find a bunch of them.
Yeah, you can go by location or by interest if you want to find
Hmm.
other indie artists or other songwriters or
Yeah.
Christian songwriters or, worship musicians. Like if you get specific with it, you can find groups for anything under the sun. There's
Hmm.
probably a group for it. And you know what? If there's not a group, here's another great tip. You can start one,
Yep.
because if you're interested in something specific like that, then other people will be too. And I think there's a lot of power in, starting something, organizing something, and you know being the host, like hosting the party. Invite the people that you know, and then they'll invite people that they know, and that's how it grows. And I know you've done a great job of that, like you said, setting up those dinner meetings where it's like the first 20 people can come hang out, meet each
Hmm.
other, swap information, maybe do collaborations, do
Hmm.
YouTube videos together, writers rounds, maybe
Hmm.
co-write. There's so many opportunities like that. So what have you found personally for like hosting those events? Anything surprising that happened to you by putting those events together?
Um, I would say what surprised me the most actually was just how much everybody enjoyed it. Um, because when you start something, you just going into it, you just don't know what the response is going to be, and to see how much everybody just is really into it and really enjoyed being at those like dinners and stuff like that, and even the retreat too that we did at the end of October. Just I I had no idea when I planned it what would come out of it, and it couldn't have been more amazing than it was, and everybody's been talking about it ever since, which I'm
So it
so
made an
happy to
impact
hear
if
that.
they're still
Yeah,
talking about it.
yeah, definitely.
That's awesome. Well, from this point right now, do you have any predictions, or you have anything like that you're seeing, new trends pop up, or things that are working well, or hearing about types of events that are working well, or what people are planning? What do you think is kind of the, the next step in the music industry?
Yeah, I think with the pandemic has definitely thrown a wrench into a lot of artists doing shows and different things like that. Um, but I've seen some people being creative. Like there's a duo here in town, Lance and Lee. They got a little camping trailer and they were touring around the country doing backyard concerts. And
Yeah.
so really, creative to think of that idea. And then also, I think, yeah, just doing like smaller, concerts with, you know, maybe at your house, and,
Hmm.
those people that are concerned about the virus, you can still socially distance, and you can have,
Yeah, like
have
backyard concerts or,
events. Yeah.
smaller groups.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there will be a lot more of that.
And I think in a way, like doing those smaller, more intimate shows and things can almost have a bigger impact if you're doing a bunch of those. I think it can create like more loyal fans in a way because they've been able to connect with you more on a personal level when it's a smaller, intimate group.
Yeah, house
So,
concerts were huge before, and I
mhm,
think the outdoor thing is really cool too. You can do
mhm,
a lot of cool events outside and set up your own stage, you can set up your own PA system or lights, or
yeah,
you can get as simple or as fancy with it. I like the camper idea. I think that's so
mhm,
cool. Just
yeah,
have it where you can unpack in anybody's backyard or in a park or something and
yeah,
set up your own concerts. Why not? I think creative people are going to get creative
mhm,
about ways to get their music out there and connect with people. And I think people in general are just longing for that connection and real conversations and just the therapy that is good music.
yeah,
Just there's nothing like live music. And we talked about online options too. I mean, there's those things that you talked about that are paid that can kind of speed up the process if you're just
mhm,
getting started. But then there's a lot of grassroots stuff that you can do as
mhm,
far as like putting yourself out there. There's so many free platforms. You can go live on Facebook. You can go live on YouTube. You
yeah,
can put videos out of your music, ask people to share it. And that's absolutely free. So there's so many options for people that I think a lot of times we get hung up on the things that we can't do or what we can't control, or we might not know what to do next. So a lot of times we're held back by the unknown, but it's also
mhm,
exciting because what if it does work? So I want
yeah,
to encourage people to try
yeah,
different things, and if it doesn't work, try something else. You just never know. And so this is kind of a pioneering stage of what's going to be next, and I'm excited for it.
yeah,
I really think that creative people are going to do some amazing things. And
mhm,
in this past year, when so many people have not been traveling, not been touring, not been doing live shows, they've been writing, they've been recording. I think
yeah,
there's going to be a lot of new music out there, and the content of the music is going to be different because of just life experiences are going to
mhm,
be different. And so it's going to be interesting to see how that unfolds. But I love this quote by Tony Robbins, and he says, "It's
yeah,
not about the resources you have right now, it's about how resourceful you are." And when I
mhm,
think about that, I think of somebody starting from zero, like no followers, no money, you know, no audience, and someone that can start with the creative energy that they have, with the time that they have, whatever it is, if it's a couple hours a week or if you can go full time, whatever time you have can go into that. And then also the connections that you already have. I think a lot of times we look over like what's right in front of us as far as our family, our immediate friends, maybe our church group, a community. Like we said, Facebook groups you might already be a part of, you can tap into and
yeah,
reconnect with people that you already know. And even just the power of asking and saying, do you know anybody who is doing XYZ? Do you know anybody who owns a restaurant that might do live music on their patio? Do you know somebody that I can host a retreat at their house or at, an event center or something? There's so many opportunities that I think if we just kind of branch out from our network and then ask them, it's like that 6 degrees of separation rule. It's
mhm,
like they know someone that knows someone that knows
yeah.
someone, and so all you have to do is ask sometimes, and you'll be amazed at what can happen. So what is your experience with that then?
Yeah, I really think one key thing that works for a lot of artists, and I see some, artists in town that are doing it really well, is the networking relationships, and just being intentional and showing that they care about others and wanting to help others as opposed to trying to promote themselves. Um, I think I think that's a huge component. There's a young guy named Frankie who does country music. And he's just so good at making each person he talks to feel important when he interacts with them. Like it's like wow, even when he talks to me, I'm blown away. Like, oh, this kid, he really wants to talk to me. He really cares. He wants to have a conversation with me. So he's like, as a result, he's been getting bigger and bigger with his music, and I'm like, that's it's working, for him. Um, Another thing I was going to mention too, like on social media and stuff, like I think people do want to see more than just about your music all the time. Like they want to see what are you doing in your day to day life? Like they want to see your funny stories about different things that you're up to, not just like music, every day, on all your posts. And I think that's where artists could be a little more creative, and mixing in some other things, about their personal life that, and even it can even be funny stuff, like a funny situation that happened to you or whatever. But I think that can keep people's attention more, because then, it's not just, oh, this is just all about me and my music all the time.
Yeah, and what I've heard from marketers specifically is to talk about, rotate through a few topics that are important to you. And so when people see that, then they think of you, because it becomes part of your brand. And if they know, like, oh, you drink this kind of coffee, then when they see that coffee cup in your pictures or whatever, they know what kind of coffee you're drinking. Or, there's different things that you can show behind the scenes where it's not all polished and curated pictures. You can say, well, this is what it really looks like behind the stage. This is the mess of chords that we have to clean up. Or with the camper van, we talked about maybe pictures, renovating that into something and showing the process. I think people really like that. And so just starting where you're at, I think, is so important, and not focusing on, where you're trying to get so much that you forget to show the process on the way there. But just being open to new ideas and kind of figuring it out as you go. I think there's a lot of room for grace there, that we can just learn as we go. Like you mentioned at the very top of this conversation, you had no idea that this is where you would be, but that's just kind of how it progressed, with how the conversations led into other opportunities and events, and how those turned into other friendships. So it's really cool to see all of that come together. And I appreciate your perspective on this as well. I want people to know how they can get connected with you and join your group and be a part of what you're doing. So what's the best way for people to connect with you online, Bill?
Yeah. So we Spire Entertainment, we have, it's the handle Spire Life, and it's on Instagram. And so if people want to follow us there, and if you can message through there. I also have my personal Instagram, which is Bill Zufelt, Zufelt. And we have the Facebook group Spire Music Collective. So if you friend me on Facebook and message me, I can definitely make sure to add you into that group if you're, someone that's in the music scene in Nashville. And I would say,
or if you want to be.
Yeah, exactly. And then Facebook, we obviously have the Spire Entertainment page too. I think those would be a few ways.
Awesome. That's perfect. Thank you so much for spending some time on the show and talking about this. I think it's really helpful just to get ideas and to think about this. And it's going to be interesting to see how the music industry changes and the good music that comes out of this. I'm really excited for the good, and I want to be a part of it. So here we are. We're moving forward. Well, thank you so much, Bill, for your time. I appreciate you being on the show.
I'm honored. Thank you.
Also, if you enjoy this podcast and want to show your support, consider joining our Patreon community to support us on a monthly basis. You can check out all the details at patreon.com/Rustic Songbird. That's patreon.com/Rustic Songbird to become a patron today. Thanks again for watching, and make sure to subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.